One of the exciting aspects, Kunal, that I wanted to ask you about was, on Concierge,
Yes.
the outreach solutions that we have for producers. Before we actually sort of start talking about, Concierge and, what it is and how it actually expands the producers' sort of horizons in terms of networking, I wanted to sort of maybe start with, what are the sort of key issues and problem statements that you've actually seen with producers, especially at early stages.
When you look at Atul independent producers, right, one of the biggest challenge for them is raising money. Right, being able to understand who to go out to, how to find those people. Back in a day, when I say back in a day, right, few years ago, it used to be an much easier process. Pick up the phone, you have like 4 people in your network, right? They're gonna give you some sort of equity. You have a streamer who's going to go ahead and commission it, you're golden, you're done with it. Not anymore, right?
Oh.
Things have changed. Now producers have to stitch up so many different things. They need to find some monies initially, then they have to go out and look for co-production partners. 9 out of 10 times these are not in their network, right? So you are limited to what you know. So that's one of the biggest challenge, how to really find co-production partners that are outside of your network. And then when you're selling rights, it's not the same broadcasters who's going to pick up the rights. You need to go global. You need to find minimum guarantees from distributors, streamers, broadcasters, really in faraway regions. Although those are really biggest things that I've been observing as you look at Concierge.
And I mean, clearly one of the reasons is that the whole commissioning model on television has come
Correct.
down.
Correct.
Studios have also consolidated. They seem to be financing lesser projects.
That's
A
right.
lot of them have actually gone from high volumes to lesser, value based projects, and that you think that could be another sort of key
That's
reason.
that's a big reason, right? We talked about this a few weeks ago. Overall productions, especially monies coming out of these large studios, large entities, have gone down, right?
Mm.
Year over year. We've looked at 2025 compared to 2021. But flip side of it, number of productions have gone up, right? So what it means that independent producers are able to stitch up a lot of these things, right, from one place or the another. And that's where we are helping in a lot of these cases. But you're so right. Big monies have been consolidated into small number of large projects.
So in this particular case, the question really is to find the right financiers or the right co-pro partners or the right studios
Right.
that will typically back you on your project and partner with you in
That's
that journey.
that's absolutely right.
The other key aspect is that with a host of these items that producers are typically managing, they're getting cast and crew, they're getting
Right.
they're sort of getting talent, trying to figure out where will they shoot. There's a big angle with soft monies as well.
Yeah, massive, right? Soft money is where you're gonna shoot. A lot of the European countries, film commission, either they are local to the region, either they're local to even a city or a state, to just being able to make the soft monies available for the entire countries. It's very hard in the region, right? So we have seen that 30, 40, 50%, right? You get tax credits back. So being able to tap into that, everybody's excited on that part. Then there are soft monies, just development funding, right? If you are talking about a project, you're building something that has cultural relevance to that particular region, well, guess what? You're going to get few £100,000, few €100,000 of soft monies, which is you can use it for development. So people know it's out there. It's hard to find, but this is where we play a big role in it. Atul, one thing I wanted to talk about, why are we talking about all this, right? And why we think we know all this? Just in past 3 to 4 quarters, we have picked up, right, as you know, close to 55 projects. There are 55 independent producers came to us and said, hey, we have a project, various different stages, could be an early stage, package, unpackage, in treatment phase. We are looking to stitch this up. We are looking to look for monies, co-production partners, commissioners, soft monies, right? Minimum guarantees. We took them on, ran it through Vitrina's smartest pairing engine. And then on the other side of it, we found matches. This is all data driven, as we know, right? This is based on what they've been up to. What are these commissioners doing? What type of signals that we have picked up? And then a concierge group, a team of people outreach on producers' behalf. And the results were just absolutely fascinating. 90% of those projects got connections. And that's why we are sort of going out and saying, hey, we know these things because it has worked for more than 50 plus projects.
That's fascinating. And look,
Yeah.
I mean, I think with all that the producer has to do, if you take this particular piece and we take responsibility for that piece, where a host of studios, financiers are all sort of, and then also, I'm sure there are other avenues for money, including distributors that typically can give minimum guarantees, or streamers that typically want to get into the pre-sales of that content as well.
Yeah. And we were able to pick up a lot of those signals. We are tracking this every day, right?
Right.
Our system tracks who's acquiring what rights, which broadcasters, streamers are active. Are these pre-buys, right? Are these, packaging that they are doing for the library content? And all of this intelligence really feeds into the matchmaking part. The one thing I wanted to ask you, right? Few days ago, we had this great session with one of the largest agencies, right? And when we work with producers, everybody just gets asked question: do you really need an agent to get your project up and running? You heard him. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was an enlightening meeting, because we learned so much about the problem statements that we've been so far hearing only from the producers. To
Right.
actually have an agency head, confess that to us was fairly interesting. So the usual myth is, and we will establish how this is a myth, is that most producers actually believe that, oh, you have to go through an agent to actually get a financier, or to get a studio, or to get a streamer, or a commissioning arrangement with a broadcaster or a streamer. And the fascinating aspect is that we've actually proven that wrong through our experience with those 55 projects, where we actually opened doors with a host of large studios, large streamers, large financiers, just on the basis of our communication and just the pitch, right? That was being sent across, and there was no agent involved in that particular case. So that was one. But the other aspect, which the penny dropped in my head, in that agency head meeting, was when there was a clear realization that agencies don't have a major presence outside of the so their greatest strengths are typically the US market, maybe a little dabbling into Canada and the UK. But beyond that, there's a big cliff that their networks actually collapse under, which means that their networks typically weaken, their access weakens, and then even their presence is not there. Most of them now have fewer offices, and they are actually winding up a lot of those offices, right? So long story short, that is a myth. Which is that doors to studios, streamers, financiers, large distributors will need agents to open those doors. It's not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times they're focused on certain size projects, right? And a lot of the independent work is, right, let's say below 5 million, below 10 million, right? And that's where they sort of thin out. One of the secret sauce that we had in matchmaking, right? Obviously, we are tracking this tremendous amount of intel about, who's doing what and what are they acquiring and what are they green lighting and what are they producing and what are they developing and who the right people are. One of our secret sauce actually started with you talking to a lot of these commissioners, financiers, right? What's the whole idea behind intent and how does that fit into our matchmaking?
So look, I think the discipline of actually listening to the market every day for signals on which sort of companies, casters, fanciers, banks, distributors, agents are tying up with what sort of content, at what stage of that content. We do this, through 365 days, 24 by 7. We have all sorts of systems to actually gather that intelligence, right? The what comes in is the data, and then we build intelligence on top of that, saying that, okay, this particular company, what kind of content do they find desirable? This particular fund, what kind of what's their sweet spot in terms of what kind of projects will they do? And there is a massive amount of intel that we convert that data into. So that's one part of the story. But the other part of the story, which was still the missing link, was that we have great data about what have they done, what have they just financed or supported or greenlit just as of yesterday. But what are they planning to do tomorrow or the next quarter or the next year. I think that is not intel, that is intent, right? And with both on-camera interviews as well as off-camera, conversations and discussions, what Vitrina is doing is we are asking financiers, streamers, chief content officers, chief acquisition officers, heads of distribution companies, what content are they picking up right now? What's their sweet spot? What will they certainly not do? Because you need to know. You don't want to burn relationships. You don't want to be that company that is constantly harassing people for projects that there is enough data and more that they will not support.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the things that we are then doing is we pick up information and data on a daily basis, convert that into intel of what kind of projects are these folks presenting, or sort of supporting. But then we are doing with on-camera and off-camera conversations. We are actually sort of surfacing intent. Sweet spot. What kind of genres? What kind of markets? What kind of stage of the project? How much do they finance? What's their sweet spot? What's the range in terms of capital that they will invest? What kind of rights do they want? Do they want to be the executive producers on the project, or is it just money that they put in? I think we ask all those hard questions. A lot of those interviews are, by the way, on the Vitrina
They
site,
are. They
right?
are.
They are available for our members. The off-camera conversations, that information is fed back into Wiki and our engine. That then is so Wiki is then very well informed, both of recent data but also of future intent, to then matchmake and pair up, right? One interesting example, right? Um, IPRVC on camera, both the co-founders, what they said: we will not back single projects. We are all about Slate financing.
There you
If
go.
you have a single project, right?
Don't go to them.
Yeah, why would you want to go to them, right? So I think those are the kind of mishaps that we avoid. And our sort of targeting then becomes super precise, and then is also customized to what they want to hear, because you can, if a producer is asked about their project, they can list 40 things.
Right.
Not all of those 40 are relevant for IPRVC, right? So how about we pick up just the three things, and how do we pick up those three things is again basis our profiling of those particular that company, those individuals who are the decision makers in that company.
Fascinating. Why are they telling all this to us? Do they just like us? Like, what's
So, short answer, I hope they like us. But I think one of the realizations with the community also is that they are eager to have the best projects pitched to them. Look, here's the thing, right? Uh, if you look at it from a financier or a studio perspective or a streamer perspective, they want to get all the best projects towards them, and they don't want the riffraff to come to them, right? How can they sort of ensure or manage that is by openly stating to folks who are kind of channeling the right projects to them, to their desks, to their inboxes, right, to their WhatsApp messages or their short messaging systems on their phones. And they believe we are one of those key partners that they should whisper in our ears or say that's the off-camera conversations that we have. And
right?
some on camera will actually say that these are the projects that we will support, these are the projects that we don't want. And when they do that, they know that they are controlling and sort of influencing the kind of projects that will land up on their desks or in their inboxes.
Fascinating. One of the things during our concierge matchmaking, like time out of time, we have a team that does that, right? And every time some sort of matches come through, we're looking at funding financing companies. 9 out of 10 times it says, don't reach out to Peachtree, right? It comes out and said, hey, don't reach out to Peachtree. You had that conversation with Peachtree, and they were like, hey, we just work through a particular channel. What was that conversation?
Yeah, so there are so we just talked about the myth that companies always will open their doors to an agent, that your project has to be managed by an agent before it can open doors for co-pros, studio financing, equity financing, so on and so forth, right? Streamer commissioning, right? We just dispel that being a myth, right?
It's not going to.
Even in your experience with all the 55 campaigns plus that you are sort of currently have been successful with, that has been your experience. But there are some companies that, especially in the United States, who have a rule that they will only accept projects from the three big agencies,
Okay,
right?
right.
So Peachtree actually, advertises that as, being one of their key criteria, right? So if your project, is agent backed, then there is a different class of, finances that will also open up, and Peachtree was one of them.
Yeah. And one of that signal was so good for us that when that came out, we said, okay, as an independent producer, if your project, we're not going to directly reach out to Peachtree because we know they're not going to sort of go through this channel. We will go to CA, WME, and UTA. And if it really fits into their portfolio, yes, you have a channel open. Our role is to really do the matchmaking,
That's
right?
right.
At the end of the day. So
That's right.
yeah, but
And if, I mean, just to add to what you're saying, if that matchmaking had to be through an agent, hey, we will always support
yeah,
that part.
absolutely.
Especially in the US, for certain size projects, I mean, if the project is $100 million project, right? You don't want to leave anything to chance,
Yeah.
right? And sure, that will require all sorts of mechanisms and methods, including having an agent represent you.
Fascinating. On your earlier point, Atul, on individual projects versus Slate. Now, when you're reaching out to just really institutional financial companies, they somehow love Slate. What's the mechanism behind it? You've talked to quite a few of those.
So there is a lot of money that wants to enter into entertainment. And when I say a lot of money, and this is largely private equity, in some cases venture as well, venture financing. But private equity is they are big believers in sort of getting into this entertainment sector, um, because they are seeing the returns, 9x, 10x, 14x, 15x, right? There are some companies that have been able to deliver on certain projects, right? That they made a project on a small budget, and then that was able to return 10 times, 14 times, 15 times the investment. Every venture capitalist, or every private equity financier loves that story, and they want to figure out how can they have a piece of that action. And but one of the things that they also realize is that projects have successes and they have failures. So you need to have a portfolio. You need to build a portfolio, and that portfolio keeps them safe, right? What you do is you essentially hire, maybe a production house or a small studio, give them the next $100 million, $200 million. We've seen lots of deals,
Yes.
last year, even some this year, where private equity has actually given out this line of cash to certain production houses or small studios, really made them big overnight because now suddenly they have green light independence. But what the reason why they are giving this out to that studio is because you need that studio to actually apply the right curation techniques to surface a lot of good projects, and then within those advance the best commercial outcome ones into the green lighting orbit.
Fascinating. It's a de-risking mechanism, right?
That's right.
Basically, out of five, you feel really strongly that two of them just gonna, hit it out of the park.
That's
It's
right.
gonna cover everything that you invested and then some.
Precisely, precisely, absolutely. And I think that's been a fairly exciting sort of realization that that capital is actually coming in. It's making up for the absence of streamer commissioning, broadcaster commissioning, or even studio financing that has been a little bit on the down. But one of the things, Kunal, I want to go back
Mhm.
is you have like a list of myths that have been busted. One of the myths that you busted, earlier in our conversation was about, the hardcore agent requirement that is not really a,
Not
a
there.
a requirement, right? What are some of the other myths that you've actually seen play out
Other big
that
one
that
was
producers typically come with the burden of that myth, and then are pleasantly surprised when we typically sort of bust that?
big doors don't open. That was one big myth,
Hmm.
right? That, hey, just go to a large streamer, large studio, right? Who's going to commission? They're generally not going to talk to us, right? The project is not worthy. Absolutely incorrect. right? We've had connections made through our concierge to Netflix, Legendary, Fox, Fifth Season, right? CJ, you name it. And these are all absolutely cold, right? Nobody knew each other. Why it worked? Intent. We've captured it really well. And the intelligence. We've understood what type of projects do they invest in, what is in their current pipeline, what are they developing, and then also who the right people are. So instead of sort of sending out to everybody in a group, no, here is an individual. We've been tracking them. They have greenlit projects. So next time a something that fits into that criteria, reach out to them, talk to them about, hey, we saw that you greenlit this project. Here is another project, fits exactly into your portfolio. Let's have a conversation, and all of that opens up. So big doors open. You don't need to have people holding your hands, bringing you inside the big doors. So that's a one major myth.
Fascinating, and that's such a massive shot in the arm for any producer
Right.
who suddenly sees some of these large doors open up for a project that might be actually
Right.
where,
Yeah.
where hadn't seen that coming and gets a pleasant surprise.
One example I want to give, right? So there's a project, US based producer, in Spanish, they're going to shoot in Mexico. And they were, again, it's a LATAM project, right? Clearly a LATAM project. So they came to us and say, hey, we haven't really reached out to a whole lot of people. We don't feel, they were still uncomfortable sort of reaching out to large studios. We did it. Well, guess what? Who replied? Sony,
Oh,
the
wow.
LATAM group.
Sony
So they say,
Pictures.
hey, Sony Pictures. And they're like, hey, this is exciting. Let's have a conversation. All it took was, and we just didn't do it because there is a group, right? Sony Pictures has that focuses on LATAM. No, because they were focusing on certain genres of projects that they were developing. And this fit perfectly into that. And again, they were super happy with the outcome. So we were able to really shut a lot of these myths down, but open massive big doors.
So that's an interesting aspect that you just highlighted, and maybe that could be a segue into that into the communications piece. The intel, that we've observed, the intent that we've interrogated, right? Finally has to translate to the right messaging, right? And again, a lot of producers that we meet, right, are so passionate about the project that they can talk for hours together about the project,
Yes.
right? And they have so much to say, right? But you still need to really crunch it down to the right messaging. Talk a little bit about the whole messaging aspect, and how some of the factors that we've determined are critical for financiers, streamers, commissioners, distributors, how that plays a role into the right nuggets that we have to select.
First of all, we have a brilliant concierge group. They've been at it for a number of quarters. The goal of concierge is to really get producers to meet with the potential match on the other side of it, right? So you're not selling a project right away. In that one first email conversation, you're not gonna go out and sell the whole thing. That, hey, look at the creative, look at the script, look at how characters are thinking, look at my thought process. We're not selling that, right? At that point in time. Idea is to get them excited enough to have a conversation. Because when a conversation starts between, let's say, a commissioner, right, or a licensing exec and the producer, a lot of magic comes out of it because they are passionately able to explain it. So a lot of the mistakes that producers make is to bring all of that passion out in that first email conversation. So the beauty of concierge is very simple messaging. Just talk about what they are trying to do on the other side of it. Feed into the things into their thought process and what they are going to develop into the future, and convince them that yes, this project fits into the portfolio, and that's it. A lot of times we just write maybe 3 to 4 words in the subject. The email might be like 4 to 5 sentences, but it's super effective, and we know because of the things that we've been tracking about.
Fascinating. But
And we also don't send out to thousands of people, right? This is not one of those things that you go to MIPCOM, download the list and send to everybody. No, it's just hyper targeted. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, and that's where the nuance comes in, because, when you do a mass mailing, it's the same message to everybody, but that itself defeats, because you can't send the same message to everybody, you have to nuance it. I think that makes a lot of sense. So let's now focus on exactly how concierge works, right? There is a initial screening of the project, some strategy sessions, right, and then the whole matchmaking, right? Talk a little bit about from start to finish how concierge works, for a producer? What should they expect?
Absolutely. And first of all, projects could be in any stage. We've picked up IPs like books, right? So we take on projects that are in early stages, could be IP, script, could be in treatment phase, could be packaged, unpackaged, right? In any phase, there are times where it's in post-production, you're trying to find licensing, right? So all of that is fine. First thing we do is we have a portal producers app, they upload their project, right? And one of the things that system does is we then run it through Vitrina, right? And our fabulous assistant agent, matchmaking agent, Vicky, comes back with potential matches saying, okay, this is the project. Here is a log line. Here is a pitch deck, whatever that we were able to gather. Here are potential commissioners. Here are potential licensing execs. Here are potential funding financing companies. So we run it through the system one time. We make sure there are at least maybe 3 to 400 matches that we have on the other side of it, right? So once we have, then we go back to producers and say, okay, project has enough matches on the other side of it based on what you're trying to do, right? So that's step number one. Then we do a strategy session, understand exactly the nuances of the project, what are the guardrails that they have, who do they always have aspirational companies, right? That, hey, I just really feel passionate that Prime Video should have it because whatever the reason. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll take on your aspirations. And then times we come back with a list saying, okay, these are your aspirational. Here is a 5% of your aspirational stuff. And then there is 95% of what we have found based on that. And then we come up with comms. Now, comms, again, producers, there are places where they do want to say things in a certain way. So we capture their intentions as well. But the comms, generally, we say, hey, believe in us. We've been doing this for quite a bit of time. This is what we're going to say to them, right? So there's an understanding, there's a matchmaking, there's a strategy. And then eventually then we come up with a list of companies, people, and comms. And then team goes to work. Now, there isn't any black box here. So once they start outreaching, every few weeks, producer gets feedback. Hey, 100 people heard from you. Did it work? Was it yes? No? Are we getting any feedback from there? So they have a dashboard very cleanly. They understand what type of things that are working and not. In some of these cases, Atul, we've learned out of this feedback loop that the project is not ripe enough. So we have told them that, hey, you know what? Let's hold for now. Get these 2-3 pieces on. Maybe there's a need for a director for your project to really bring it out because everybody's excited about the script. They're like, okay, we'll come back and talk to you once you have a director. Great. That's a massive feedback.
Yes.
So they did that. Attachment came in, and then we were able to run it through, and we got a lot of those. So the point is, there is massive visibility on how things are moving. And also, it's time bound, right? It's not unlimited. You go to an agency or distributor, like, okay, we took on your project. We're going to see what happens. We have a 90 days time frame. So we will reach out to all of these individuals within that time frame.
Actually, one of the things that you highlighted, actually, and I just want to sort of stress how important that is in this entire journey that the producer is taking to get the right partners, right? Is that the feedback loop is very transparent. So feedback in terms of how the first set of messages have landed, what are if there is excitement, what are people getting excited about on the other side? If there are concerns, what are those concerns, and how can the producer go back to the drawing board and mitigate those concerns? And if there are other sort of objections, right? What are those objections? So if you get a host of very experienced commissioners, financiers, streamers, studios, broadcasters, right, distributors giving you that feedback in a very tight window, the benefit of that to the producer is actually incredible. Otherwise, you can go to a host of events across the next 8 months, 10 months, right? And still not be able to sort of patch together all the feedback in a consolidated, tight window and make sense of what the world is telling you about your project.
Yeah, no, it is massively helpful for producers, and they truly appreciate this massive feedback loop. Yeah.
So one question, Kunal, was that, the 55 projects that, have come in through the last few months that, have already found partners, right? Have already got responses, from prospective partners to those projects. Talk a little bit about, which countries and markets, and then also what genres have you handled?
Massive diversity, right? In terms of producers that have come through, right? So obviously we are all here in the US. So, a lot of, California based producers that we have picked on. Keep going south of border, Mexico, Argentina, right? Chile, right? All of these producers. Keep going east, right? UK based, multiple UK based producers that we had, French, right? Going even further south, South Africa, Nigeria. We've had several projects that we have picked up. Middle East, this is one of the toughest market, right? In both ends of it, you've worked a lot into that space. Multiple projects in Middle East that we've made connections internationally.
Okay.
Right, India, we have a hub, lot of Mumbai-based producers, and even keep going, further east. Korean projects, Japanese projects, and then projects from New Zealand. So yeah, geography-wise, we've really picked up quite a bit of that. Now, the beauty of all this connection making, matchmaking has been producers in North America have found matches in Middle East, have found matches in Far East, right, like South Korea. And then same way we had South Korean, one of the example that we keep talking about, there's an animation IP that they had. There's a Korean animation IP, little edgy, adult focus. I was on YouTube. We were able to connect them with one of the largest streamer on the planet, and they are picking their IP up and in the
Wow.
development phase. And there, the match, we didn't connect them to the South Korean office. We connected them to the LA office to it. So again, crisscrossing a lot of these genre. We've picked up everything. Again, animation is one of those, right? We've done a lot of work. Drama, we've picked up features, right? We picked up documentaries, docu-series, we've picked up, season renewals, right? Where the IP existed and we're trying to get another season to be commissioned from a different broadcaster than the past. Right. We had projects, right, that are focused on God, Jesus. We had a lot of these that were very nuanced,
Faith
very
based.
niche, very niche, faith-based projects. And some of those were like, I don't know how much response we're gonna get off the charts, right, for some of those faith-based projects. So again, massive diversity in terms of genre as well.
That is wow. That's very inspiring. And talk a little bit about how this the producer comes with their network.
Mhm.
And depending on the amount of experience that they've had or the number of projects that they've had, they may have been an exec in a studio, now are sort of getting their own label into shape, right? So they come with some networks. Talk a little bit about this whole network of networks that we are able to open up, that is outside their domestic constituency.
Big thing that with Vitrina that we do, we've been tracking projects, people, commissioning, development work, right, and companies from 100 plus countries, right? So we have intelligence that's coming from every nook and corner of the world. When producer comes in, first thing we always tell them that, look, you have a network, not going to add more, right, to what you already have. You have a 10 square mile. You're in LA, you have a 10 square mile. You have all of that, right? I'm not adding to that. What we're going to open up is the network that you cannot see. And a lot of this network is in Europe. A lot of this network is in Asia, right? And these projects have value. There is a massive aspiration to work with producers sitting in Hollywood. So being able to open up the network, which is not visible to them, is something that we do beautifully. And they feel that, hey, maybe I'll get on a plane, go to south of France, and somehow I'll be able to find all of these co-production partners that I should work with. 9 out of 10 times doesn't work. They do meet them, shake hands, but no business really come out of it.
Fascinating. Awesome.